get out of there with any of that rumor crap about Cignetti leaving Indiana, because he's not leaving Indiana for anything. And that guy is going to be a lifer in Bloomington for at least the next decade. All right, everyone, welcome back. This is Bando's Breakdown. My name is Zain Bando. This is episode 73. Hope you all are doing well on this Friday afternoon in a little bit of a colder climate, if you will, in the suburbs of Chicago. So very, very interesting that we're at that point of the winter where people are starting to get bitterly disappointed with the cold. But nonetheless, glad to see that you guys are here. Thanks again for tuning in. Let's go over the particulars. YouTube.com/EDB Network is where you'll want to subscribe to the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. As such, every show on the network, including every episode of this one, is on there. And of course, if you are someone that likes listening to the show only, you can do so about a few hours earlier on a Thursday evening. So Thursday evening in Chicago, Friday in New York City, you can listen to Bando's Breakdown to a regular podcast. So for some of you, you may be hearing this only on a different medium for the second time in as many hours. So just something to keep in mind there as you move along. If you need to add me to your RSS feed, go and do that. But nonetheless, though, excited to get into everything that there is today on the program. Should be a good show as per usual, as we're about the midway point in the month of January, and we're getting closer and closer to determining who is going to the Super Bowl in the NFL. So exciting stuff to go over today and so much more. We're not going to take too much more time for any more logistics. You guys know the drill. One other thing, though, you can follow the show on social media at Bando's Breakdown. That's where all the clips live. That's where all the reels live. And again, those of you who follow the schedule for those, we've been a little bit behind. We're getting some stuff up, and by the time you're listening or watching this, you've already seen some other clips that came out of last week's episode as well. So just something to bear in mind there. All right, now that we have that out of the way, let's get into the particulars with Zain's overview. So today, we're going to be talking about a lot of NFL stuff. We'll be picking all the NFL divisional round games, and I'm going to explain in just a minute why we're going to be doing that, because typically that would be saved for Bando's Blitz. So we're going to do that, a lot of NFL stuff as well, and we're going to do some UFC stuff. We're going to do some journalism stuff as well. I didn't think we'd be talking about that, and yeah, it should be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing where the show kind of takes us. But nonetheless, though, excited to kind of go through with you guys the postseason, or the rest of the postseason rather. And then with that being said, let's get started. So we were supposed to have an interview today with a source very close to the Music City Bowl. We've had to postpone that interview to a later episode. It's either going to be in episode 74 or 75. Don't quite know, but the interview has been rescheduled. It's a source close to the Music City Bowl. I said last week that this would be a part of the episode. It's not going to be a part of this week's episode, so we're going to proceed as normal, just with regular content. So no exclusive interview, but we should be getting some more exclusive interviews outside of this one I'm teasing later on this month. So stay tuned for those. Not ready to talk about them just yet. One of them is a pretty big one. If you know the MMA space, I'm just going to put it that way. If you know the space and you know the prominent players in the space, you'll really like it. Getting into some of the topics now, going over the NFL playoff bracket. We were perfect through the first day of the NFL playoffs, which included the Rams defeating the Panthers and the Bears defeating the Packers. But On Sunday, we hit a little bit of a roadblock after the Bills successfully defeated the Jaguars. Unfortunately, the Eagles were eliminated by the 49ers. And on Monday, we had the Steelers defeating the Texans. So we got those two wrong. So out of the 6 games, we were 4-2 straight up. So speaking of that, let's get into Survivor, and I'm going to tell you who I think is going to the AFC Championship game. So as we just alluded to, 4-2 for wild card weekend. Had to do some correction. In week 18, I accidentally said the Bears defeated the Detroit Lions, which is not true. That did not happen. So I wanted to make sure that we got that cleared up and out of the way, that yes, the Lions did win. So with that said, and including all of the games that we just went through, my record going into the divisional playoffs is 178-99. We were 174-97. So obviously with 4 wins, that's 178, and of course 2 losses, that's 99. So we're 1 loss away from 100 losses. Hopefully we don't hit 100 losses, at least not yet. That would be too early. But let's get into the picks now. We like New England over Houston. I love the Bills over the Broncos. I like the Rams over the Bears. And I like Seattle to defend home field advantage against the 49ers. A few reasons why I like these picks. Number 1, New England at home has been a wagon all year. Okay, it's as simple as that. Denver, I can't really trust just because of the lack of playoff experience and them not being able to win big games. You have to understand, on their winning streak this season, the really long winning streak they had, they pretty much beat teams that were below 500. So just something to bear in mind. The first big game that they played was against Jacksonville, and they did not look good whatsoever. So I don't trust that Denver can go in and beat a Bills team that I think is riding a lot of momentum after stunning the Jaguars in the closing minutes. And when you have Josh Allen in the playoffs with his clutch gene, it's very, very difficult to stop there. So I don't really love Denver in this spot. I could be wrong. This is probably the game where I am going to be wrong. But I just think the Bills right now are on a different momentum type pace, whereas Denver has had a few weeks to think about where they really are when it comes to their identity's sake. And again, as I just alluded to, that playoff experience, I think, is really going to do them in a major, major way. So I don't really love Denver in this spot whatsoever. So just something to bear in mind there as well. And then finally, I like the Rams over the Bears. And I know what you're going to say, Zain. Why do you like the Rams over the Bears so much? The Bears just upset the Bears just upset Green Bay outright. And there's a few reasons why. Caleb Williams is going to end his rookie year soon. Okay, for you to even tell me that the Bears had a chance to win a playoff game, let alone make the playoffs a year ago, I would have said you were crazy. The Bears, to me, are already overachieving in a major way. That's something that people are forgetting. And then, of course, you look at the Rams, and it's like the Rams still have Matt Stafford. They still have Puka Nacua. They still have a defense that can be competent at times, and they're good in the kicking game, and they're good when they come up in the clutch. If you give Matt Stafford too much time to go down and win a football game, you're damn right he's going to go down and win it. So I just think it's something to bear in mind that, you need, I don't know. I just feel like you need hope. You need something if you're the Bears to say, okay, how are we going to flip this game on its head? And the only way I think you can do that is getting after Stafford and making the game miserable. You got to make the game come to the Bears in order for the Bears to respond, because through 3 quarters in almost every game, much of the season, the Bears have not played considerably well under massive pressure. And I think that's a major problem. You can't do that against a Rams team that's high flying and can score at will. if the Bears get behind early, I don't think it's going to be good. The Bears are going to have to match um, not Green Bay, the Rams score for score or make stops to ensure that they still have a chance to win. It's really as simple as that. So that game can go one of three ways. Either Caleb Williams plays unbelievably well, plays really hard, and just stays efficient. Matt Stafford is conservative and they run the ball well and they try to neutralize their defense to make Caleb Williams um, throw fits, or the game is won via special teams where a missed field goal or a blocked punt is going to make all the difference. And given how cold it's going to be, given that it's in the negative wind chill factor, I even thought about going to this game, and I'm not going now because of this. The wind chill factor is going to be insane. It's going to be 18 degrees for the game Sunday night, but it's like the wind chill factor of -6 is going to be huge, which is why I think a lot of people don't think the Rams can win. But the thing is these old statistics are going to have to die at some point. Sean McVay is going to have to win a game at Soldier Field. He's never won one. I think he has the Bears in a pretty good position. It's not like this Bears team has been a powerhouse all year long, and all of a sudden now they're coming in saying, "Oh, great, you know, oh great, let's go in and let's continue our dominance. Let's continue to show that Soldier Field is the toughest place in the league to play." The Bears aren't even remotely close to achieving any of that if they can't win the game Sunday night. So I think a lot of people are jumping the gun, and I think a lot of people forget that the Rams just won the Super Bowl not too long ago. It was all the way back, in the 21-22 season against a very good Bengals team. So it's not like the Rams aren't allergic to playoff experience, and it's not like the Bears, can't have their moment in the sun. The Bears can, but the big issue for me is, simply put, Matt Stafford is older. He's a veteran. He's done this before, and he's won a Super Bowl. And until Caleb Williams can get a few more pieces around him, and until they can play a complete four-quarter football game where it's fundamentally sound, they've yet to do that against a really good team this year. I can't trust the Bears. So give me the Rams from a survivor standpoint. So with that said, I have the Patriots playing the Bills in the AFC Championship game. The Bills go to New England, and I have the Rams going to Seattle. It's going to be an all NFC West showdown on one side and an all AFC East showdown on the other, which would mean that my Super Bowl prediction of the Rams playing New England is still mathematically alive. So there is that as well. Those are my NFL picks. All right. Mike Tomlin is out as the Steelers head coach. This was huge news. He was not fired. He opted to resign. He had been there a really, really long time. He took over for Bill Cowher a very long time ago. Won a Super Bowl in 08-09, Super Bowl 43. Santonio Holmes corner catch in the end zone to beat Kurt Warner and the Arizona Cardinals, one of the best Super Bowls in recent memory. And just an awesome game. Really, 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 really awesome game. But yeah, I mean, I just think overall, this is an end of an era. This is an end of an era for Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. They had a great run. He obviously had Ben Roethlisberger for a long time, but you can't falter in the playoffs so many times. I'm pretty sure that's now 6 playoff losses in a row for Pittsburgh, which is not great. Obviously, you're not going to, obviously, if you don't win in the playoffs, you can't advance. And the longer you don't win in the playoffs, your Super Bowl drought grows, and it's grown exponentially. They've been to 1 Super Bowl in 15 years. They've been to 2 Super Bowls in, 17 or 18 years. So it's been a really long time since Pittsburgh has been good. And maybe it's time for a fresh face. And really, given that the Steelers never fire coaches because of how consistently they've been over the years, I think that's very interesting as well. So I wonder what the Steelers are going to do. Do they go after somebody like a John Harbaugh, for example, because he's so used to the AFC North vibe? That would mean that he would have coached the Ravens and potentially Pittsburgh. Now he needs to do the around the world thing and do all four in the same division. That would be, I don't know if a coach has ever coached all four teams in one division before, but that would be funny. Um, but nonetheless, though, big news. Obviously, a lot to take in. What's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers? Did he play his final game? I have no idea. But nonetheless, though, I am looking forward to the new Steelers regime. What they're going to do and who they're going to bring in, I don't know. But I know this: if anything, Pittsburgh usually gets their coaches right or its coaches right. I think it will. And yeah, get out of there with any of that rumor crap about Signetti leaving Indiana, because he's not leaving Indiana for anything. And that guy is going to be a lifer in Bloomington for at least the next decade. So I wouldn't worry about Signetti's job security. So there's that. We've kind of already previewed the Bears and the Rams, but let's go over this Bears Packers game from this past week. Huge, huge, huge comeback by the Bears. It was a 25 point comeback, the largest comeback in Bears postseason history. Trailed 21-3 at one point, 27-16. And then obviously you had the two massive throws, Caleb Williams to Roma Dunze, and of course the eventual winning touchdown, Caleb Williams to DJ Moore. You can't say anything more about this game other than it was an instant classic. Simple as that. Instant classic. This is what NFL playoff football is supposed to be. It's as simple as that. This is what NFL playoff football is supposed to be. This is what this is what Bears fans had hoped for a long time, dating back years, that the Bears would get another playoff opportunity to pull off some magic. They win their first playoff game since January of 2011, and they get to remain at home moving forward, obviously, against the Rams. And of course, we went over it. You know how I feel about the Bears going into this week. But the Bears needed this win to show that they can win in the postseason when it matters most. And I think the rivalry is back, and I think the rivalry could not be healthier than it is. If LaFleur doesn't get canned in Green Bay, Johnson versus LaFleur looks like a fun rivalry for at least the next few years. If he does get canned, it'll put even more pressure on Ben Johnson to show that the Bears now are starting to shift the rivalry in their favor. So it will be interesting to see what exactly happens there as well. So, with that being said, let's move on. A bunch of people had this happen to them. There was a Miami Hurricanes reporter who had been covering the team for, I think, since the 1980s. And apparently he was denied a credential to cover the national title game at home in Miami, of course. And he goes by Miami Radio Beast on Twitter, and his decision was reversed. But apparently, this happened to a bunch of other journalists too. This happened to, I think, a few other prominent Miami media members as well. And really, my 2 cents on this is, you know, I think some of this stuff is really system automated. I think sometimes these credential forms, and as you know, I've done credential forms a lot for my job and just what I do professionally, but I feel like some of these credential forms are flawed because sometimes you get these where you don't know whether what you're putting in is the correct info, and then when you submit it, it kind of goes into a ghost machine a little bit where you don't hear for the longest time like why you were denied or approved. It's always, it's due to spacing or due to the outlined criteria in our policy, which is never helpful. So I'm glad the guy spoke up. Okay, that's number one, because if he never tweets out that if he never tweets out that he was denied, nobody ever knows. That's number one. Everybody who I don't know who the guy is because I don't follow nor cover Miami like that. But if he doesn't tweet it out, everybody assumes he's probably going, okay, because of his track record, right? That's number one. And number two, then of course nobody in the Miami athletic department sees that. Oh yeah, we denied the wrong guy, but apparently some other people got denied. But it's good to see that he's going. And I got to say this: no matter what beat you cover, media credentials are very hard to come by. Not to make this about me, but I essentially have a 100% success rate. I expect that to change in the future. I'm not denying that. Um, Actually, no, I don't have a 100% success rate. I have essentially a 100% success rate of things I've applied and gotten access to where I've used it. But for the most part, though, they're hard to come by, and it's good to see that for such a high demand game like the national championship game, that that the college football playoff and Miami did the right thing, because technically that's a college football playoff issue and not a department issue unless he was on the inclusion list is what they call it. That's a discussion for another day though. All right. Kind of moving over to the journalism realm now a little bit. We're gonna briefly talk about Ariel Helwani. Helwani went on an 18-minute rant on his show the other day. I don't have the audio for it per se, but I can kind of tell you what he reacted to. So essentially, Helwani went on his program. I think it was on the Monday edition of the Ariel Helwani show, if I'm not mistaken. And he basically talked about how he feels Dana White is disinterested in the UFC. And he's playing all these clips and stuff like that. Stuff from Robbie Fox, stuff from Stephen A. Smith, and I don't know if there were any other one. Oh, and CBS Mornings too. And the same theme is kind of apparent, that Dana just isn't answering questions, isn't really selling the fights, and really isn't going into the grander scope of what this new Paramount deal is going to look like, which I think is more than fair. Now, where I think Ariel is misplacing himself is, I think the passion for the sport for him is still there. He wouldn't have sold out in 2016 and left his post um immediately if he didn't believe in the product. Okay, so I think that's number one. That's where I would debunk him. Number two, the guy was just in Fiji for 10 days. Okay. It's not like you come back from a vacation and you're fully ready to go, ready to hit the ground running on Monday. You know, being in Fiji for 10 days and doing a lot of stuff, whether it's fun activities or whatever, or even doing work is still a lot for him mentally. So I think that's a bit of a slight. Okay. That's number two. Number three, I disagree. I disagree with Ariel in a sense too, because he broke the news to Stephen A. Smith that Callum Walsh is going to be on the first Paramount card, which I think is very awesome. I think that Walsh is highly deserving of that. Okay, that's a scoop that he gave nobody else. He gave it to Stephen A. Smith. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I think he wants to open up about some of these things, but he doesn't know how to because he doesn't want to say anything wrong. So I think there are multiple parallels to look at it. I think he's nitpicking something that he isn't there. If he has one or two bad interviews, I don't really think it matters because the machine is so large and the MMA community kind of knows what to expect from the promotion, that the product is what it is, to where I don't think he feels that he even needs to sell the fights anymore because everybody kind of knows everything. Now, the part where I think he messed up in a bad way was not remembering that Kayla Harrison was a two-time Olympic gold medalist. But I think, in a sense, Kayla Harrison, Amanda Nunes sells itself. You don't need a 10-minute promo to explain how big that fight is. Now, should he have done it for the casual audience? Sure, sure. But I think my perspective is the MMA fan base is so trained to always be on the pulse of what they're up to and all the big fights that are happening that you don't really need any further context. Now, if it was, a new fan that was tuning in to CBS this morning's, that wanted to learn more about the UFC and stuff, that would make sense. But I think the UFC is realizing we already have an audience that's going to go wherever we go. So we don't really have to do anything. All we have to do is just set up the bells and whistles. So I think this is partially a slight that he's still not the biggest fan of him. That's number one. And number two, I honestly think he was just waiting for something to complain about. Were his points valid? 100%. But did it need an 18-minute monologue? No, I really don't. I really don't think so. And to even hint that he's done and he has one foot out the door, I think is ridiculous. He just has more going on now because he's took more on, but it's simply because he wants to do it and he knows that he can build something. So I think it blown way out of proportion. All right, final couple topics really quickly, 30 seconds on this. My reaction to Illinois' new scoreboard, tremendous. They needed this to happen. I'm not saying this because I went there or anything. They genuinely needed this to occur. That scoreboard was old. That scoreboard was on the beat it around the bush. That scoreboard had some technical issues that nobody really knows about that I'd rather keep under wraps. But it needed to happen because that scoreboard was old. That's number one. Number two, this is part of a larger project that they're going to be working on in regards to Wi-Fi input and a bunch of other things to enhance the stadium. So that's another thing. And number three, this is a major selling point to potential Illinois recruits because now not only do you have the Brett Bielema effect, you have a guy who's now on a consistent basis win 8, 9, 10 games a season, 3 out of his first 5 years, going into year 6, this fall. But now you can sell to recruits, hey, we have the biggest scoreboard in all of college football. This will incentivize recruits to want to come because they mean to say, oh, I can look up during a game and see myself on the biggest video board in the country. Like that's pretty cool. There's only 10 schools that can say that are in a similar category. 2 of them being Michigan, I think, and another one being Tennessee. But I mean, I think that just goes to show the evolution of college football. They want it to be, something that's a lifelong memory. Something that's an experience that people will always cherish and will always look back on and will always remember, this is where I was, when Illinois beat so and so and they did it, in front of a scoreboard that was brand new. So I really like it. I think it's going to be great. I'm excited to see it a lot. There's only 4 Big Ten home games, 6 home games total. I'll probably end up going to 5 out of the 6, if not all 6 this fall. But nonetheless, should be an exciting year and very much looking forward to it. All right. One thing I saw, this Lynn Jones thing, okay? I'll make this brief because we're running out of time. Lynn Jones should be commended, okay? I'm going to explain why. All right. She's been in the business 30 years, okay? She noticed a man who was not, in the greatest minds, in the greatest frame of mind, or excuse me, I actually made a mistake here. His name is not. I had a misspelling of his name. There we go. Yep. So there we go. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I think that Lynn Jones deserves a lot more respect here because she actually went out of her way to make sure that he felt like he mattered and that he was just a man in a room. He's not bigger than anyone. He's also a human being. And, at the end of the day, I think her general point was that life happens. And I understand there are these old timers out there that are saying, oh, it's a public press conference. You can't say that. Bull crap. There's a ton of lines that are blurred these days in the world of journalism and sports media. There are worse things to worry about. There really are, guys. There are worse things to worry about. People getting access to games that they shouldn't be getting access to, creators, just because of their Instagram following, getting a credential. This is a woman that's been in it. This is a woman that's been a part of the African American, journalism community for a long time, and is someone who's a fixture in Florida. um, to even have the human decency to say that, which is a perfect segue into Zinger, to even have the human decency to say to William Cohen, hey, like, great season. You have a lot to be proud of. I mean, I don't think there's any issue. And I even told somebody else this. I said, you know, I said, it's great she did that, but you got to remember, next time you're called on, you should have a question, because there's a way to, there's a way to follow it up. But as Dan Patrick said very smartly, it really is not that big of a deal at all. And I think people need to get a grip and know that this isn't some rando. This isn't, if it was the first time she'd ever been in a press conference setting, I'd have a totally different reaction. But this is someone who's been around a long time. Her reputation isn't going to be destroyed. Like, people are like the NFL and the Jaguars, and ESPN and all these conglomerates capitalized on it. And now everyone knows who she is. Whether she intended to do that or not, I don't think she did. But I think she made her viral moment, to me, in my opinion, gave her a lot of new fans. And I will say that I'm going to closely pay attention to what she does, because now I'm really interested. And I think that what she's doing is only going to help grow not just the journalism community, but the NFL community, to show that ultimately these players and these coaches are truly human as well. And everybody makes mistakes. And the Jaguars season is over, but it isn't to mean that they didn't have a great year. They were a division champion, and they hosted a playoff game. And Trevor Lawrence, finally figured it out. There's a lot to be excited about, I think, if you're a Jaguars fan. No errors this week. And yeah, that's going to do it for another edition of Bando's Breakdowns. Thanks again for tuning in. Again, this was episode 73. Please be sure to listen to Bando's Breakdowns wherever you get your podcasts. Would be appreciated if you guys did so. And of course, you can feel free to subscribe. YouTube.com/ETB Network would be greatly appreciated. For myself, Sam Bando, and everybody at the ETB Network, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I hope you enjoy all of the NFL that is this weekend. If you are going to the Bears game, bundle up. If you are staying inside to watch all the football, that is a wise decision. And until next week for episode 74, I will see you guys soon. And until then, have a good one. Stay warm and cheers. Thanks, everyone.